Welcome. You've tuned into Business Lunch. I'm Nisha Podar and with me is Manglam Malu. Manglam, good afternoon. We are in festive mood today.
Absolutely.
Here in our studios. But then looking at the market at this point, no complaints at lunch hour because there were enough global cues and the weak global cues really for the market to deal with. But even at lunch hour, it's not showing the sluggishness. In fact, market at high point of the day. And as far as Nifty 50 is above the 10,900 levels, we are, I guess, sorted at this point. As far as Nifty Bank is concerned, the banks are doing better than the key indices today, and it's the mid-cap space which is really showing huge amount of resilience, and therefore the market breadth is also looking good. But the metal pack, especially the aluminium stocks, is a point of worry, Mangla.
Absolutely. Metal stocks perhaps could also be under some sort of stress because the dollar index yesterday moved to around 97, and which is perhaps causing a pressure on the metal prices itself, not doing too well on the metal stocks. We're at the high point of the day, yes, above the 100-day moving average for the Nifty. But if you take a look at the Asian markets, remember they closed much lower. So we have been outperforming the globe for the last 7-8 trading sessions, and today that outperformance continues. So about 3% cuts seen on the Nikkei, 285 points or about a percent 0.1 cut off the Hang Seng, as well as Shanghai also sitting with cuts along with the Taiwanese indices. Yesterday, the European markets, they ended in the green. Let's see how they open, because remember, yesterday's ending that is come by in the European markets, that happened while the US markets were awaiting the Fed decision. And add to that, there was that deal that the Italian government cracked with the European Union as well. So all of that was doing fairly well. The futures indicate a sharp downtick for the European markets. Let's see how we go. In fact, Morgan Stanley's Jonathan Garner is currently underweight on US equities and expects 2 rate hikes from the Fed next year. Let's hear out more from him on the global market scenario. Listen in.
We are expecting 2 rate hikes next year, and that's now what the Fed is also expecting. I guess where we differ is we're actually underweight US equities. So we're not expecting any great performance from the S&P near term, albeit it has undershot our target. What we're actually very interested in out here in Asia is the way that our markets are substantially outperforming the S&P. We upgraded emerging markets end of November, and then Hong Kong, China. The reason we were expecting and still are expecting 2 hikes next year, and the Fed now agrees with us, is that we are looking, in our view, at a deceleration in US activity. So the lagged effect of the tightening is going to affect the rate-sensitive sectors in the US economy. So that's sectors like housing or auto purchase or commercial real estate. We're also seeing a widening of corporate credit spreads in the US, so there's an overall tightening in financial conditions. And we think the US economy actually slows to around 1% on an annualized basis growth in the third quarter next year. In our world out here in Asia, we've gone through our slowdown, and what we're seeing now is the easing that's going to deliver a pickup in activity. So as we go through the second half of next year, the emerging world, not just China, but also large economies like India, Indonesia, and outside of Asia, Brazil, their growth acceleration will be in stark contrast to the deceleration underway in the US. So in the last 7 to 8 weeks, there's been a wholesale change in the pattern of performance within global equities, where the US has begun to structurally underperform the rest of the world.
All right, so those were important opinions coming on the overall markets. But let's do stock focus check. And one important event today to watch out for from the telecom heavyweight Bharti Airtel. Well, the board is set to meet today, and talks of fundraising are on the agenda. In fact, take a look at that stock, slightly beaten down, 1.5% down. In fact, another stock that we should always look when it comes to Bharti Airtel is also Bharti Infratel. That has been showing some bit of momentum over the last few days. So that is also one of the stocks on our radar. But Rima joins us to give us details on what can be expected from the board meet today. Rima.
The board meeting is scheduled today to consider fundraising. It's important for Bharti, one, because they have a debt of 1.1 lakh crore rupees as of the September quarter, and it's imperative for them to raise funds because Moody's had put the company on a ratings watch for a possible downgrade, citing a deterioration in the company's financials on account of heightened competition. Now, there were reports in November which suggested that the equity fundraise for Bharti Airtel could be to the tune of 12,000 to 15,000 crore rupees, which could be via a fresh issue or rights or a private placement to the investors, and the promoters too are likely to participate in any rounds, whether it's a private placement or rights. So that was the expectation by the market. The other fundraising, which already the market knows and the company has spoken about, has been an Africa business IPO, and secondly, monetization of their stake in their tower business or the Indus Tower. Today, the focus is going to be whether they take the equity route. 12,000 to 15,000 has been spoken about in the market, so perhaps already expected by the street. Anything over and above that should come in as a positive surprise for the company, and not for the company, for the analysts. Back to you.
All right, fair point, Rima. Thanks a lot for that. Meanwhile, we're getting in some news from the government officials where LIC will step up stake to about 51% in IDBI. That was pretty much known, I reckon. SBI, Allahabad Bank market raising plans are already lined up. So those are a couple of lines that we're getting. LIC so far has 30% stake in IDBI. In fact, with that, I believe we can go to our top story now. We told you first, and now it is confirmed. The government is seeking 41,000 crore rupees additional PSU bank recapitalization. We spoke with a whole host of experts on this development. Listen into what they have to say. Come back. We get a word coming in from Sapna.
I think it's well worth it, but I think they've left it for too late. I mean, this should have been done earlier. But perhaps they have a better sense of their revenue position, or they have a better take on the kind of position they're going to take regarding slippages in the fiscal deficit. But however it works, I think this was called for, and it's a good thing to have happened.
Definitely it is positive, and we expect then definitely government can allocate it to not only to the PCA banks but also to certain non-PCA banks also. And that will ensure that non-PCA banks are able to support the growth and the PCA banks are able to come out of the prompt corrective framework, and they can at least pursue the growth in asset classes which don't attract high capital charges.
It's a clean way of infusing capital using recap bonds. It doesn't directly show up on the fisc. At the same time, you do risk transformation and you infuse capital, which is welcome. I see this as being a way in which RBI and the government can compromise on relaxing the PCA norms. On the back of money coming in, I think RBI will have no issues at all in relaxing PCA norms. They should have done this earlier, and they should have done this for a larger amount as well. The provisioning that's been done on the gross NPAs is still on the lower side, which has been one of the issues that RBI has raised.
All right, so that is something that our colleague Sapna Das had broken earlier in the day, and that's a very important subject. So just take you through the details. Government tables its second supplementary grants demand, and government seeks additional 41,000 crore rupees for the PSU bank recapitalization. Now, supplementary grants, for that they seek Parliament nod to spend about extra 15,100 crore rupees in FY19, and also seeks the nod to spend gross extra 85,900 crore rupees in the fiscal year, and also infuse 2,300 crore rupees of equity in the beleaguered Air India. So that's the big story of the day. With that, we'll